Oh, hey there. So I'm here to remind you that there's a little truth in every lie. Now I want to tell you a very embarrassing story that had horrible outcome, but there was a lesson in it. So imagine we're at the dawn of the internet. A lot of you can't remember that because that's before you were born, but I'm older than Google. So I owned a music venue and I went severely in debt. I went $675,000 in debt, and this was in the year 2000. Okay, so money was worth more back then. Now, everything was falling apart. I met my dad for the first time, blah, blah, blah. And I get an email. I got a lot of emails every day, hundreds. And I get this one email and it says, hey, your relative in Africa has died and left you quite a bit of money. Now, most of you at this point are like, oh, we already know how this ends. And you're right. But at the time, I didn't. Okay, so I'm like, no thanks. I'd rather just earn my money, honestly. And then he goes, no, look, you got a relative and it's in West Africa and they left you as their beneficiary and whatever. This is why it was believable, okay? My grandfather was a foreign ambassador to Africa, to Tanzania, and he was not known for his faithfulness. And so since we had some ties over there, I was like, all right, tell me what's going on here. And they did. And it sounded believable enough. So I talked to my brother and he's like, yeah, man, I mean, it sounds like it could be legit. And then they're like, come claim your money. Just fly over here and get your money. It's $15 million. And I'm like, I'm not gonna fly over to Africa and go, I'm gonna end up on some documentary or something like that. This is not gonna end well for me. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And they go, all right, well, I mean, if you just give us a death certificate, then we can give you the money. I'm like, well, I don't have a death certificate because I didn't even know the guy. I'm like, well, I mean, we can get you a death certificate and then you can have the money. And I'm like, So I do some research, very limited research because the internet was new. And I look up this bank that they're talking about, and sure enough, it's a big bank. And I call some numbers, and sure enough, the same people that are contacting me are on this, they'll call up, oh, this is ABN Bank, blah, blah, blah. Who are you looking for? Yeah, hold on. And then they would transfer me to somebody. They go, oh, no, sorry, wrong number. Let me get you over to the right person. Let me transfer you. And they transfer me around. It seemed very legit, okay? A little sketchy, but in a third world country, I'm like, whatever. So we finally get through all this, and they go, yeah, no, the money's yours. It's just a matter of just give us the death certificate. And I'm like, well, I don't have that. And they go, well, I mean, we can get it for you if you want. And I was like, okay. And it's like $4,000. And so me and my brother talk, and I'm like, this is an awful lot of trouble to go to get $4,000. Like set up a whole banking system and all these telephone numbers and all this websites and all this stuff over $4,000. I'm like, maybe it's real. It's worth $4,000 to see if this is real. So I pay the money, and sure enough, they produce a death certificate, and they say, okay, cool, now you can claim your money. I'm like, all right, cool, give me the money. And then they're like, yeah, just come over here and get it. I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. And then they're like, well, I mean, we can transfer the money. I'm like, yeah, transfer the money. Just send it over to my account. I'm like, well, there's a transfer fee. And I'm like, cool, how much is it? And it was $1,000 or what, a couple $1,000, something like that. And I was like, if that's all that's between me and $15 million, then sure, I'll take the money. So I give them the money, and they go, okay, we're gonna transfer the money. I'm like, good. And I'm over here like, am I really about to get $15 million? Like, that's a lot of money. It's life-changing money. So then they're like, oh, your money got caught in Amsterdam because 9/11 had just happened. And so, like there's an anti-patriot act or whatever in the world it was. And so you have to pay some anti-patriot something, right, to clear my money up. And I'm like, I'm clearly a patriot. I mean, look at me, I live in Texas. And they're like, well, the laws change, whatever. And by this point, it's in Amsterdam. I'm like, this is an awful lot of trouble to go to over a couple $1,000s. I mean, to have people in multiple countries and websites and all this stuff, and they showed me proof of it, and I'm like, all right, how much does that cost? It was a couple $1,000s. I'm like, whatever, so I do that. Something else happens. Well, now you gotta do whatever because there was something got flagged. And I was like, and I'm used to fees. I'm used to stupid things that are like, whatever. I mean, I deal with the government all the time and they're horrible. And so I was like, how much is it? And they told me, and I'm like, look, I'm done with this, okay? Can I just fly over and get the money? I'll figure out a way to get it back home. They're like, yeah, fly over to Amsterdam. I'm like, Amsterdam seems a lot safer than Togo, West Africa. So I was like, fine. So I book a flight, last minute to Amsterdam, which of course looks sketchy, and I get flagged and all kind of stuff. And they're like, "Hey, you and Lon, come over here. We're gonna talk to you." And then, I got over there and I flew in, and sure enough, there's a guy from the bank, and he shows up. He's wearing a suit, and he's there to greet me at the airport. I'm like, well, this is a good sign. So then we go out to eat and settle in, get a hotel or whatever, and then he takes me to this bank, and they've got a whole bank set up. Okay, I go in there, and they're like, "Well, for this kind of money, we got a private area that we go to." And I'm like, "All right, let's go to the private area." And we go there, and they pull down. They have all these big buff dudes that are all strapped. I mean, you can see the guns on them. And they pull out this trunk that is, I don't know, this big and this tall and this wide. And they bring it down, 4 guys, something like that, bring it down and put it on the ground. And they've got all this electronic code stuff all over it, and they put in codes, and then they open it up, and there is a chest full of cash, $100,000 bricks. And they pull one of them out, and sure enough, it's $100,000 bricks. And they slice it open, and they give me a couple $100 out of the middle of it, and they're like, here, go spend it or whatever, this is your money. I'm like, cool, let's just get this out of here. And they go, you really want to walk out of here with $15 million in cash? I'm like, okay. When you say it that way, it sounds stupid. So like, we can arrange for security, and they'll escort you wherever in the world you want to go, and then you can deal with it from there. I was like, yeah, escort me with some security. And so they're like, well, that's $4,000. I'm like, that honestly seems reasonable at this point for some people with guns to take me to where I need to be. Fine. I'm like, just take it out of that. And they go, oh no, the rules are you got to go get money from the bank. And I'm like, and by this point, I'm about out of money. Like, I'm already borrowing money just to do this in the first place. And so I go pull $4,000 out, and I give it to them. They're like, yep, we're gonna set it all up for you, and we'll get this stuff, and we'll take it wherever you want. I was like, cool. So I start making arrangements of where we're gonna take it. I'm spending this money in my head already. Then they kind of ghost me because they know when my return flight is. And finally, I'm like, I got a show, I got to get back to America, but this money's mine now, and I'll deal with it. So I get back, and they're like, oh, well, hey, this thing came up, phone was messed up, but we've got your money. I'm like, okay, cool. So then I'm driving along with my friend, okay, and on the radio, it's back when people used to listen to the radio, on his radio, something comes up. Have you been scammed by the Nigerian Letter Scam? Listen tonight at 6 or whatever. And he's like, and he changes the channel. And I'm like, Nigerian Letter Scam. So I Google it. I'm like, but this couldn't be a scam. And then like Google it some more, and I'm looking at all these letters, and I'm like, these sound very familiar, but it's different. Mine is different. I didn't want to believe that I've been lied to, that I've been deceived, that I've been cheated, that I've been fooled. I didn't want to believe any of that stuff. I wanted to believe I was about to get $15 million that I saw with my own eyes. Guess what? It was a scam. And I finally came, I admitted it to myself. I've been lied to, I've been scammed, there's no getting this money back, okay? And I go to tell my brother about it. I'm like, hey man, this whole thing's been a scam. They've been lying to us for months. This is how they do it. They start off in Africa, it goes to Amsterdam, it goes to London, it goes to Atlanta. This is the path that it's gonna take. And he goes, no, we gotta, this has got to be real. We're going to go over there, and we saw the money, we can go get it. I'm like, it's not real, man. It's not real. Eventually, I had to let it go. Now, by the time you added up my plane tickets and how much I spent on all the things, I lost $37,000, okay? Which paled in comparison to how much other people had lost. I saw somebody that lost $7 million. Like, they just cleaned this guy out, and it happened again and again. I was not the only one that got scammed, okay? It is the 3rd biggest industry in West Africa. There's diamonds, oil, and the Nigerian Letter Scam. And it started off as like written letters or typed up letters back in, I don't know, the 80s or something like that. And they just kept getting money, and so they kept doing it. And as far as I know, they're still doing it today. I tell you this because it's an interesting story, but also because a lot of times we're lied to, and we want to believe the lie because the promise sounds so good that we just keep going, and we keep throwing good money after bad. And we are deceiving ourselves, and everybody's going, this isn't real. Like, you have to stop. Look at your own life. We're gonna have to have a part 2 because we're about to come to the end of this. Sorry, bye.